I'm back for a second round of today's bollocksology. Like many people, I look over the Irish Sea in dismay at what's happening to Great Britain, the island of Great Britain, as opposed to the United Kingdom. And in the island of Great Britain, you have England, Scotland, and Wales. And especially what's been happening since 2020. And although my own country, Ireland, has been subject to the same stuff, what's going on in England is to the level of frightening. Your man Starmer seems completely out of control. There's a terrible sense, and it's varies, particularly in England. But you see it from people in Scotland and Wales making the videos as well. There's loads of videos now online saying, I can't, Britain is finished, I'm out of here. The UK is finished, I'm out of here. I can't handle England anymore, I can't handle Scotland anymore. And the level of despondency is just awful. Now, again, these would be the kind of videos that might show on my playlist, and I'm sure for every one of them, there's lots of English, Scottish, and Welsh people who are saying, well, I'm very happy here. But just from so this, don't take this as being a carte blanche. No, you know me, I have lots, very close to many English people. I spent some time there, quite a lot of time there in my life. I know the place very well, I know the people very well. I'm specifically talking about England, but it generalizing as, Great Britain, Scotland and Wales as well, but particularly England, right? And there definitely is an awful sense, and it's sad because the people who feel this are generally some of the nicest people you'll meet anywhere on earth. Just like really nice English or Scottish or Welsh folks. And they have a lot of them, just decent, okay people who are just trying to live their lives. And there's a terrible prevailing sense of despondency among many of them. They feel like Britain is finished, it's over. And it's being destroyed on purpose, which it is, like Ireland is being destroyed on purpose. And, but it seems so much more visceral over there, mainly because they're much further down the road. You see like all these people in burqas and, Muslim garbs all be on the councils and mayors and all this stuff. And then a guy in Derby, who's the councillor, was photographed holding an AK-47, Muslim guy. And it just seems so wretched in that sense. Now, I know there's lots of lovely stuff there as well, and lots of lovely people are doing the best they can. But I'm just saying, particularly in certain cities, places like Birmingham, God. And I'm sure there's lots of people in Birmingham who are enjoying a good time as well. But I'm just saying, I had family there in Sparkhill, and you visiting there as a kid, and it was very Irish. Though it was the first time I smelled the corner shop curry smell. We didn't have that in Ireland, the smell of curry coming from the corner shop run by the local Pakistanis or whatever. I can remember that quite distinctly. And the city was never, it was once a very prosperous place, but it never really recovered from World War II. The Nazis bombed the shit out of the centre of the city, and the city planners did the rest, and they knocked down a lot of beautiful architecture and stuff like that, and replaced it with like things like the Bull Ring. But that's just one example. That's just places like, a place that where Bradford has some beautiful areas in it, but that's like predominantly not English anymore. And there's some beautiful Georgian streets in Bradford, near the university. And, those kinds of places, and most of, parts of London, and it just seems like, the laws being passed, they're doubling down, like, people being arrested for thought crime, praying outside abortion clinics silently, tweets that might have hurt people. There's a recent video of a retired police officer who made a very harmless comment about the bad treatment of Jews, and somehow the dumb police, the idiots they have in the police now, thought he was anti-Semitic and came over to his house, and she found very Brexity books. It's really bad that, it's really, really dark. And when you get to that level. And even with Trump and all his condemnation from around the world, Starmer is a robot who keeps doubling down. there seems to be like it seems to be that the whole political system in Britain right now is designed to demoralize, and not just the working class, but the middle class. And it's happening here in Ireland too. I was just hearing about some friends of mine were talking about that friend of theirs. They have a child with severe disabilities, and they're basically homeless here in Sligo. Now they're living in some kind of temporary rented accommodation because the landlord threw them out because he wanted a house or something. So, but you think that someone like a couple with a child on disabilities would go straight to the housing list, top of the housing list, the social housing list? Nah, not a chance. But they're building all kinds of little luxury little cottages for Ukrainians and refugees, while the Irish families where a child with disabilities is left. This is being done on purpose, folks. This is being done on purpose. Now, in the case of the Irish, our leaders, the Irish politicians think they're like global statesmen, but they're just clowns. They're not that they want so much to be in the top club, and they never will be. They're just bottle washers for the globalists, and they're doing it. They're doing it to furnish. They're putting families in Ireland on disability with disabled children, homeless. They're making them homeless, or moving them down the housing list, to demoralise them. Not demoralise them, but to get to furnish their CVs so they get jobs in the globalists, and with the EU and all that stuff. That's all politicians see this country as, a way to build your CV, your resume, so you can get a globalist institution job. And they will sacrifice this country, and they are sacrificed gladly for their careers. Now, it's different in England. If you're a top British politician, you're automatically in the top club, just because of England's history, Britain's history, its prestige, its power base, the City of London there, the financial thing. So they don't have to impress the globalists, because they're already at the very top. So why are they demoralizing and doing everything to make British society fall apart? And how could they possibly get away with it? Well, let me put it this way. If you were a psychopath and you found out that you were on a cruise ship, and you knew that that cruise ship is going to crash, and that everyone, including you, was going to die, but you and a few of your friends had a secret lifeboat, you would go around abusing the other passengers, robbing them, having sex with as many as possible, having illegal sex with as many as possible, and not giving a fuck, because you know that ship's going to go down, and all these people who would normally hold you accountable will go down with that ship while you have your little lifeboat. What if that's literal? One of the great things about the folk horror movies and folk horror TV shows is the plausibility of some of the plots. The plots have an almost chaos magic aspect to them. Now, if you have seen that movie, A Field in England, it's a very interesting. It's basically a lot of women don't like, but men do like it. I'm not saying all women don't like it, but the most of the women I know see that I didn't like that. It's a black and white kind of surrealist folk horror film set during the time of the English Civil War, and it basically revolves around this guy who is basically trying to escape the war, and during a battle, and he ends up coming into contact with this group that lead him to this Irish wizard, this Irish magician. And this Irish magician uses the guy to look for buried treasure that's in a field in England, and he uses him as a servitor. So it's the secret is buried under England, a field in England. So this Irish magi, wizard, whatever you want to call me, would like to extrapolate that further into what they're probably under the ground today. And I might have touched on this before. There's another folk horror film, it's in fact one of the greatest movies ever made, Penda's Fen. It's a British TV movie. If you haven't seen it, you must. And it's about a young boy coming to terms with his homosexuality in that part of England where King Penda, the last pagan king of England, ruled. Now, at the same time, there's a secret British underground base, again, underground base, being built under Penda's Fen. And there's a journalist who even says something like, we don't know what these psychopaths are doing under the ground there. Now, if they knew something was going to happen to the world, this magnetic pole reversal. Now, I was talking to a friend today, and he described it quite nicely, that the Earth, think of the Earth like a gyroscope. Now, the magnetic field is now going towards the equator. They're both going to meet in the Bay of Bengal. The models show that they will meet in the Bay of Bengal, and it's now happening at a high speed. Now, the Earth's natural inclination should be to spin on its side like this. I think Neptune spins on its side like that. Neptune or Uranus spins on its side like that. The magnetic field causes a gyroscopic effect that has a spinning on our axis, more or less north-south. You know, the tilt is just like a gyroscope. As the magnetic field comes down towards the Bay of Bengal from the north and south to meet, the gyroscope is thrown off and the Earth suddenly flips on its side and spins like this. So basically, at the equator, it's boiling hot in the daytime and Arctic at night, assuming it's spinning at the same rotational speed of 1,000 miles an hour. This might also play into why they push the flat Earth thing, because they don't want people knowing how the Earth works, because then if they know that the Earth is a globe and how it works, if it goes wrong, they'll also know how it goes wrong. And how it goes wrong is this magnetic field, flipping. And at halfway flip point, the Earth loses its gyroscopic function, falls to the side, and then corrects itself again when the magnetic field flips fully. And that's your Ragnarok, that's your Kali Yuga, that's your Atlantis, that's your deluge, that's all the catastrophism. And that's it. And that explains even the Velikovsky thing, where they said the stars in the sky were in the wrong place. Well, the Earth was spinning on its side like this. And what if these motherfuckers know this and have known it for a long time? And they've reached a point now where it's coming fast. And we know that the acceleration of the magnetic field is happening quicker. And why I'm concentrating on England is will become apparent. Not just the folk horror thing being a kind of a synchronistic archetypal insight, but why it's like this. We don't know when it could happen. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen in 50 years. But there seems to be a lot of stagnation in the West right now. A lot of projects have been stalled. They seem intent on killing us. Not just only the ping pong, but I heard about there that, like, it's been known now for a while that they've been doing things like creating ticks, insects, that if you get a bite from them, it makes you allergic to meat. Like all these bioethicists are doing all these. So when someone's called a bioethicist, what that means is they're out there finding ways to kill human beings, like Wuhan stuff. Gain of function. They're making it so we're trapped in the cities. We're trapped. We can't move. The electric car thing ties into that. So it's basically they're heading for a kill switch. Now, if you were so back to the analogy of the psychopaths, the handful of psychopaths who know the cruise ship is sinking, and they're using and taking what they want from the rest of the passengers. To avoid suspicion, what they do is create conflict between the passengers. So they might get the immigrants on the bottom of the ship and start allowing them to use the top part of the ship where the tourists and don't want the first class, but where the regular tourists are, the regular cruise ship passengers. And suddenly they're going, I thought I was here, we paid a premium ticket for this, and now we're full of all these these bottom feed, the immigrants from the bottom are now up wandering around us. So they create conflict on the ship. While they're getting their lifeboat ready for when, at the same time, they're robbing them of their jewelry and other stuff. So using that analogy again, I have friends in England who tell me stories, and you've heard me say this before. They live down in a place like Somerset and stuff, where there are British Air Force bases, Royal Air Force bases, airfields, and so on, that have been closed since probably the end of the Cold War, even since the Second World War, when there was things like, Spitfires and Hurricanes and in them. And yet to this day, and going on for years, they see truckloads of materials going in and truckloads of spoil coming out. And yet nothing seems to really get built on these Royal Air Force bases or these military bases to warrant the amount of materials coming in and out of these places. So what's the obvious thing? They're building underground bases underneath these places. So, say you were someone like Keir Starmer, Boris Johnson, and maybe even many celebrities. You would have a vested interest in energizing this despondency in English and British society by telling the native English, you're second-class citizens next to the new incomers, make them angry, make them feel hopeless, make them feel there's no hope, while they themselves, the establishment, are all, this is the reward you get. We're all going under the ground. This is why maybe King Charles, is now basically a Muslim. You tell them there's all gender problems. They're not really men or women. You drive them crazy, and all the time you're preparing your final entry into these underground bases. Now, if you have, we don't know how long. We know that we can measure that magnetic flips happen, but in geological terms, it's very difficult to determine how long the flip cycle happened, because it just seems to happen quickly. But that doesn't mean it happened quickly in reality, because geological records happen over thousands or millions of years. So it's a tricky one to determine. So but we'll assume it happens quickly. They basically go under the ground for a while the sloshing from all the tectonic plates causes the tsunamis, the sudden melting of the ice caps, the rotational things caused by the spinning of the earth on its side for a short while before its corrections again. And you do have to wonder if, and then you have Denver Airport and all over the United States. I've never heard rumors of tunnels under Ireland, but just not probably, not going to happen. But there's other ones that are building space rockets. I want to go to Mars. Why the rush to go to Mars? What's that about? Why the desperate thing to get 1 million people to Mars? It all seems very quick and very, come on, we got to get to Mars. We've got to get to, they know that there's something heading. This is it. The catastrophe is coming. And the best way to keep the natives off their asses while they prepare to go underground or into space is to have them all fighting amongst one another. Have them all fighting amongst one another. And so, it's been, my friends have told me in England, and I've heard it for years, that under the English countryside, there are vast underground bases. Not just, Mickey Mouse things, but entire cities that could sustain thousands of people for maybe 100 years if necessary, or more, in terms of food, water, electricity, the lot. And this would also tie in with the kind of the lifestyle we're being given of the Borg. You basically live inside your computer. I mean, getting these people ready for the ones who will be chosen to go underground. The 2x2, the chosen people, the techno-chosen people. Get them used to living in a world where they don't deal with nature. And you see how, the whole environmental thing, it's all about this, it's all about, instantaneous electricity from the sun or the wind, but there's no redundancy built into it. It's either on or off, it fails or it works. And I think what would happen is, if you live in a large city, get out. And if this thing starts happening, and it could take 20, 30 years, so it might happen. You might live a normal lifestyle. If you're in your 40s or 50s now, you might live to be very happy end of your life. Not happy, but you live to at the end of your life. They're probably going to round people up in the cities and kill them. either through a virus or something else. But that's why that's the electric car thing. Once they have that, they're done. So if you live in a large town or a city, I'd definitely say get out. Um, these what they call minorities, these Muslims who've taken over our cities, particularly in Britain, they'll be all wiped out. I have no doubt about it. They're going to kill them some way. And they will see it as a mercy killing. They will see it as a mercy killing. And J.D. Vance was even saying something about EMP. Now, a serious EMP would cause the flip to happen super quick, and the magnetic poles to flip quick. So these guys are reckoning will be living underground. They've known about it probably since the 50s. And they used maybe even the Cold War as a front for doing it. But now there seems to be a sense of end game. Does anyone else get that? Like the things like the madness of this world seems to be the final gaslight before the end. This is the impression I get. Now this thing could take 25 or 50 years. So many of us watching me on this video and you guys watching this probably will live the rest of our lives out with never having to experience this directly. Oh, there's certain weird things. I've noticed strange. I've been working with some AC motors at home that were built in the 1950s. And the how these AC motors work is they change polarities by using an electromagnet to flip the polarity. And I have some of these motors and they're from the 50s and 60s and 70s. And for some reason now, the polarity won't flip. The polarity is locked in reverse. What's the fuck is that about? And I've been racking my head to figure out why is the polarity of this suddenly changed. They were working 2 years ago. Now they're not. The polarity is not. The electromagnets are not switching the polarity. How they work is you have a thing where you have the electromagnet here, and you have the coil here, the motor, right? You have the magnet here, and on it is a cam. And when you fire the relay on the electromechanical element, it pushes forward a cam that goes on the first stroke this direction because of the way the cam is shaped, and changes the polarity to north-south. The cam is released, and then when you fire it again, because of the shape of the housing, it then fires this way with the 18 volts burst, and then changes the polarity to south-north. It's not doing it. On 3 of them, it's not doing it. And it's really bugging me. It's a no-brainer. It should change the polarity, but it's not changing the polarities, even though the electromagnet fires. And I mean, is it me? Maybe, I don't know. I'm being paranoid, possibly, but this has never happened before. That the magnetic fields changed, or failed to switch with the electromagnetic pulse. So DC motors are still fine. They seem to be working fine. DC coils are fine. AC induction coils seem to be working okay, although it's been a while since I put a multimeter to one. But yeah, it seems okay. There's something not right. There's also a lot of appliance failures. And you go, they're made in China and they're crap. Yeah, that's true. But Jesus, there seems to be a lot of weird appliance failures. Like, just like, technically it should be working, but it isn't. And you can test the circuits, and you can test the coils, and you can test the relays and the motors. And, like I had a washing machine go there last year, and it was only 2 years old. And I said, what the fuck is this? I took it out. And I took out the motor, and I used my multimeter, and I said, it wasn't working. I put it on the desk, and it was an AC motor. It was a 220 volt motor. No, it was a step-down transformer to 48 volts. So I used the step-down transformer, 48 volts, AC on the other side with the electromagnetic switch, put it on, tested the coils, and all the coils were intact. Like there was no break in the coils. The windings were all fine. There was nothing that should have stopped that motor. That motor. There was no reason why that motor didn't work anymore. It just stopped. Now it's got me wondering about all these appliance failures, all these other things that seem to be having aircraft falling out of the sky, going the wrong direction. There seems to be an awful lot of aircraft. I know it could be like the needlecraft and car things. A lot of cars. It's and then this obsession with wiping us out or depopulating us, and we know that the population is naturally declining anyway. So I think that you see it on the front line in England because they're our next door neighbours. They speak English. They're unlike Ireland. They're a very powerful nation with real influence in the world. So we notice. Many of us have English family members. We travel there a lot. We understand the culture there. Although it's a very different, England is a very different culture than Ireland. We understand each other. There's an understanding that we're different. We're not alien. We're not that alien to one another. Even though Ireland is the Irish thing is very different than the English thing, and even we're different than the Scots and the Welsh too. And not in a bad way. I mean, we're just all different. But you can see, you get a feel for what's going on over there, and it's almost like the people are told constantly by the establishment there, what are you worried about? You're fucked anyway. What's it to you? You're fucked anyway. That's almost like the mentality that's given out there. What do you care about? You're fucked. And it could explain so many things why people are suddenly all moving all over the world to different places. Like some of the magnetic things in our brain are making us say, let's make a runner. I don't know, but I do think there's something to that. They are totalitarian fascists. They are scumbags, but in a normal situation, they would be in a zero-sum game where basically would blow up in their faces because they'd gain nothing from it. How would they raise taxes? How would they do what they need to do? How would they get why are they raising? I saw a video of kids in Germany who never use power tools, and how are they trying to do them? Sawing, putting the saw on the desk and rubbing the plank back and forth on it. Like, where's the win for them? Why absorbing everybody into the machine, the digital gin? There has to be something like that going on. So, let's talk about this, both here and in Telegram. Do you feel that they know something is coming? You remember during the Rona Chronicles, I said, is it an asteroid or something? Is it, this? What is it? It's I wake constantly have this sensation. It's cosmic. It's from the outside the planet. So let's see what happens, and let's hope it doesn't happen for a long time, and we somehow find a way to get around this gaslight, Pax gaslighter. Gaslight them that we're subject to. Yeah, there is dark magical secrets under a field in England, and under Denver Airport, and no doubt under many other places like that in the world. There's a song, the Jam song, I going underground. It's it's kidney machines pay for atomic bombs, and the public gets what the public wants. But I don't care about society wants. I'm going underground. That's literally what it's like. Take care.